guys, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my recent reads of 2024. So I'm gonna try and speed through these because I have done a decent amount of reading this year so far, and I'm lumping together stuff in series as much as I can. So we're just gonna dive right into it to catch you guys up, and this will be kind of the end of my end of the year wrap up for you, / beginning of this year wrap up for you before I can get into my normal video content situation, I guess. Okay, anyway, so the first book that I read was Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree, and I talked a little bit about this in my best reads video because I read Legends and Lattes at the end of last year. So I started the year off with Bookshops and Bone Dust. It did not disappoint. I like Legends and Lattes better. Bookshops and Bone Dust is a prequel to Legends and Lattes. It takes place many years before Legends and Lattes does. However, its epilogue takes place immediately following Legends and Lattes, and it made me really desperately want the next book in that world. If Travis Baldree is planning on writing anymore, I'm here for it. So I did give it a 5 stars, and I loved it. It was sweet. It was perfect. It involved a bookstore instead of a coffee shop, so like similar but favorite things of mine. So they were trying to save this bookstore of her friend while she's laid up with an injury, and the rest of the mercenary gang is doing what they needed to do. But it was great. I enjoyed it immensely. I do say that if just because it's a prequel, I don't think it means that you can read it before Legends and Lattes just because of that epilogue. So I would read Legends and Lattes first still. I think I enjoyed it a lot more anyway that way, with all of the little Easter eggs that were put in it for people that had read Legends and Lattes first, but it was amazing. Next up, I read The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. This was a 4-star read for me, and I was trying to do the whole shifter thing again. This time was much more successful. So it involves a girl who is a doctor at this hospital. She is a wolf, shifter, werewolf, however you want to call it, and she desperately needs a fake boyfriend to get her grandmother off her back, because her grandma's trying to get her to go out on these blind dates with people because she's desperate for her granddaughter to find love or whatever, and she just needs somebody to bring around her grandma and be look, get off my back about this. Cue the male doctor in this scenario, who is also a werewolf, who needs a mate desperately because they just found out that he's an alpha, and apparently if you're an alpha in this universe, you don't really get much job security because people are concerned that you're gonna wolf out and attack people because you can't control your emotions or whatever. But apparently if an alpha's mated, they're more subdued, and so they're less concerning to people or something. I don't know. So he needs a fake mate to tell the hospital board, hey, you don't have to worry, I know you just found out about my status as an alpha, but it's not a big thing because I already have a mate, and so I'm not gonna get all wolfy on people. It was cute. They, I think, end up finding out that they're real mates. Spoiler alert for anybody who cares. It was adorable. I really enjoyed it, and like I said, I gave it 4 stars. Next up was the whole Don't Let Me series by Kelsey Ray. I'm not going to talk about these too much in depth individually, but they were all 4, 3-ish star reads. So in the first one, Don't Let Me Fall, these are all college romance, by the way. Maybe sports romance? I actually don't know. They might all be hockey players. This could have been also in my hockey era, now that I think about it. So anyway, it's all college, I think it is hockey romance. And in the first one, you follow a girl who's been dating this guy for several years now. He's on the hockey team. He has this good guy reputation. And when she goes to his house one night, she finds out that he's got a new roommate, and blah blah blah. Fast forward, the roommates supposedly have a bad reputation or something, I don't know. Fast forward even more, the boyfriend's been cheating on her, and they break up, and cue the romance beginning between her and the roommate. It was cute. I enjoyed it immensely. It was 4-star read for sure. The boyfriend gets what's coming to him because he's an absolute douchebag, and Colt, I only remember his name because I really liked that one. Colt is the good guy all along, and it's super sweet and super fun. And then in the next one, you actually follow his little sister and his best friend. So it's Colt's little sister and Colt's best friend that was not Logan. Like, Logan and he were supposed to be best friends in the first one, and then that kind of ended after he cheated, which was my one sticking point with this book, because they all knew that he was cheating on her and nobody bothered to say a word about it. I guess Colt, like, had said things like, hey man, you gotta stop, like, she deserves better than this, but like, that's all they really did. So, you know, whatever. And then in the second one, it's his little sister who has just come to this university, and his best friend, who have like kind of had this thing going because they grew up together, but then like, I guess the best friend, his name is Theo, realized that he had feelings for the sister, and he like backed off immediately because he was like, I can't do this. And so he started acting really hostile to her, I guess, to like fend off his feelings or something. And so they're kind of like frenemies, and they start to overcome that and date, and it's cute, and that was a 4-star read for me as well. The next one follows the girl from the first book's roommate. Her name is Kate, and she has epilepsy, which was a nice little bit of representation that I think was kind of lacking in the first 2 books. She's not really out with her diagnosis. She is pretty ashamed of it, honestly. She hates how it inconveniences people, and she's like kind of depressed about the entire situation. And in the second book, while she had gone out to meet them for dinner, she actually had a seizure in the middle of the restaurant. And cue Theo from book 2, his big brother, who was there to save the day. He's a paramedic, and he obviously doesn't care about her condition. He's older considerably. I want to say like maybe 10, maybe 12 years older than the rest of them. And he's a paramedic, like I said. He's a divorced dad of 2, and the 2 daughters, I think the oldest is like 18, so there's not a huge age gap between his oldest daughter and Kate, which is a little awkward, but it's fine. So the whole book kind of revolves around her coming to terms with her condition, and her realizing that it's not something that she can change, so she needs to accept it about herself and understand that the people that love her also accept it about her. Mac has to come to terms with a lot of things involving his ex-wife and his 2 daughters, because they're kind of estranged from him because his ex-wife has been telling them lies. And it was just, honestly, out of the entire series, Don't Let Me Break was my favorite one. I really enjoyed Mac as a male protagonist, and I really enjoyed kind of Kate's journey as she learned to accept herself and realize that she's not an inconvenience, that she's worth loving no matter what. It was really, really good. The next one was Don't Let Me Down, and that follows Mia, who was another roommate of theirs, and it was kind of my least favorite of all of these, like, in the roommate circle. So this one follows Mia, like I said, who has a pretty rough history. Her father was murdered like several years before the first book takes place. He was into drugs, he was into gambling, he was kind of a degenerate, and he was murdered because he had taken out a loan from loan sharks to cover her college education, and he couldn't pay them back, and so they killed him. Turns out the people that killed him were friends with this like local billionaire family who was like I don't know, the dad's like a senator or something. There's like a connection there. And so said billionaire's son, who was a professor at their college and who has also invested in a new professional hockey team in their town, he's just kind of like dabbling in investing new things in their area, and all of a sudden he decides to invest in Mia and help her out of a few scrapes. It was fine. Mia was pretty abrasive, in my opinion, as a main character, which like is her entire personality, but I just don't really love the way that she was like absolutely refusing. Like, she's supposedly best friends with all of these girls and they love her unconditionally, and she tries to tell them like the same thing. Like with Kate, she was like, oh, we love you no matter what, but like she refuses to let anybody in for herself. And there's just a bit of a disconnect there that I didn't really love. I don't know, this one was the weakest of all of the 4 books thus far, in my opinion, so I think I only gave it a 3 stars. And then the last book that I read in this world is only tangentially related to the other ones in that it's like in the same town, so you recognize a couple of names, but it follows this girl who walked in on her boyfriend cheating on her, and so she moves out of their apartment together, but she has nowhere to go, so she tries to go to her brother's house. I guess he has like 4 or 5 roommates, and when she gets there, one of them opens the door, and he's like in the middle of doing other things, other people, and doesn't recognize her or know who she is at all. Kind of like kicks her out because he's like, oh yeah, sure, you're here for him. You're just like kind of chasing after him or something. So then she tracks down where her brother actually is, and she ends up moving in with the brother and starts to fall in love with this roommate of his who's not as bad as everybody makes him out to be. And there's like a whole other plot going on. There's like an arson and a car accident that was suspicious and a whole bunch of other things that were unexpected, for considering the rest of the series was pretty lighthearted. But the model behavior was fine. I didn't love it as much as some of the other ones. I didn't dislike it as much as Don't Let Me Break. I do have the rest of the books in the series because I got all of them in like a bundle deal, but yeah, I'm gonna keep reading them eventually, like if I need things to pick up, but as of right now, it was okay. I enjoyed it. Definitely not my favorite thing in the entire world, though. Next up, I read Raiders of the Lost Heart by Jo Segura. This follows a woman who is an archaeologist. She's kind of renowned as an archaeologist. Unfortunately, she's mostly renowned because she made it onto the picture of like an archaeology weekly magazine or something, and all she's really known for is being like that hot woman archaeologist instead of actually being known for her work. But she spent her entire life chasing down the tomb or like the death site of some kind of South American conquistador is all that I can really remember about the specifics there. But she's spent her entire life believing that he's like an ancestor of hers, and that's why she's trying to hunt him down. And then the male protagonist, they went to like grad school together and they were kind of rivals, but they kind of had one night where they thought they might be something else, but then he kind of ruined that, and then she kind of ruined that, and then they spent the rest of their careers hating each other because of everything that went down after that. And she definitely blames him for taking, I think, like, I don't know, an internship or something, or a job immediately afterwards that she thought she was going to get, and like she just blames him for taking a lot of opportunities from her that she thought she was supposed to be getting. And then fast forward to present day, she gets invited on this mysterious expedition that is exactly what she wanted. It's an expedition to go and chase down this person, like this site that is, she thought her ancestor was in or whatever. And she finds out that he's heading the expedition, and she hates that, but she doesn't want to not be involved. It was very similar, I don't know, it gave kind of similar vibes to The Lost City with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum, but it wasn't as good. The characters were really annoying in some parts, especially him. Like, he just kept making the stupidest of decisions for the stupidest of reasons, and she would mostly just keep forgiving him. I don't know, I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. Next, we're gonna talk about House of Flame and Shadow, and I mean, you guys know I'm a mask girly. I've always been a mask girly, and I was especially a Crescent City House of Earth and Blood girly, but you know that I did not like House of Sky and Breath, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I kind of feel the same way about House of Flame and Shadow. I started reading it the day that it came out. It took me about a week. I was reading it physically and I was reading it on audio, and as a conclusion to that series, I don't think it's as bad as book 2, but I don't think it's very good. And all of the fan service that was paid by the crossovers, I'm not going to go into any more spoilers than that, I think was purely just that. I think it was fan service. I think that nothing else could have, like, the entire plot could have happened if none of that happened. Like, there was absolutely no reason for those things to occur that she could not have figured out within the confines of her own world. I just don't like Bryce anymore. I enjoyed Bryce in book 1. I really did. I liked her personality. I liked the way that she was dealing with things. I don't like that every single book seems to be a repeat, wash, recycle, whatever of book 1. Bryce has all these secret plans constantly, and she's got all these gears turning all the time, and I don't know. I'm kind of tired of her being the only one to know what's going on at any given point in time. It's turned into my least favorite series by Sarah J. Maas. Throne of Glass is going to be number 1 for me always. It was 3 stars. It might be less than 3 stars, but I gave House of Sky and Breath 2, so I liked this marginally more, so maybe it'll stay at 3 stars. I don't know. Moving on. Next, I read Priest by Sierra Simone. I've seen everybody recommending this. I almost DNF'd. And I almost DNF'd at the end, which is kind of saying something. I think it was like 80% of the way through, and it's because of the classic miscommunication trope, which you guys know is one of my biggest pet peeves in the entire world. And if I had been holding a physical copy of this book, I would have chucked it across the room. So you follow two characters, one of whom is a priest, and this woman who is like kind of trying to find religion. So she like goes into this Catholic church and she like confesses all of these sins to the priest in the confession box. I don't know, I'm not super religious, so I don't really know if I'm using the right words. And they start a little thing, which is not great for many reasons, most of which involve the fact that he's taken several vows in which they should not be doing things, but they do them anyway. And she kind of hates herself for the fact that she's like leading him into temptation, but she can't help herself and he can't help herself. The storyline was fine. I had a really good time with it leading all the way up to the point where I didn't. Like I said, I'm not a very religious person, so like that aspect of it wasn't great for me. It just doesn't click with how my brain works. So let me just say that if you stumble upon a scene and you don't know what's going on in that scene, maybe, just maybe, ask instead of running away, literally running away for years. And then being like, you know what? I think I love you after all. Let me track you down and find you again. That's all I have to say about that. That made it about a 3-star read for me. In terms of everything else though, I enjoyed it. I thought that it was spicy. I thought that the characters, until that point in time, were enjoyable. I think that relatable is not the word to use here because I couldn't relate to either of them literally at all, but I think that they made understandable decisions up until that point, and that was why I was really disappointed, and it went from probably being at least a 4-star read down to a 3 for me. Next was a really cute and cozy little fantasy read, and that was A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic. Not quite as good as Legends and Lattes, but it does follow a woman who is a human, but she's really known for her baking in this small town in the middle of nowhere. And all she wants is to start up her own bakery. And she's got these 2 orcs that are her neighbors, and they are gay, and they are like her surrogate fathers, and she has always like kind of leaned on them for everything, and they submit her into this baking contest unbeknownst to her that is like taking place in the capital, and it's very Great British Bake Off vibes, and it apparently is like very prestigious, whatever, and they submit her, she gets in. Nobody has ever gotten in without utilizing magic before, and she does, and so she's like in this torn situation where she's like, I don't know if I should, and then an elf, the elf that had come to tell her that she had been accepted, kind of convinces her that she has to go, and it's really cute. They definitely have like a little thing going, but she doesn't think that they should have a thing going. You don't get his thoughts at all. But anyway, she goes to the baking competition, and it is absolutely adorable. She makes really good friends there. The world is just super cute. Is it the best thing that I've ever read? No. Is it as good as the cozy fantasy vibes that Legends and Lattes gave me? Probably not. But it was a really fun, really cute, really lighthearted read. The Great British Bake Off was like a comfort thing for John and I for a really long time. We still love watching the Great British Bake Off, and so those vibes were awesome. I enjoyed that a lot. I liked the ending. I liked everything about it, so I ended up giving it 4 stars. Next, I read Bride by Ali Hazelwood, just like everybody else was doing during the month of February. I liked it. I mostly liked it. I don't know that I really need to give you guys a synopsis because this has been everywhere, but you do know that I love Ali Hazelwood's books. I think they're really entertaining. They're probably not the most well-written things in the entire world, but I enjoy the stories and I enjoy the characters every single time, and that's no different in Bride. I think it was an interesting switch for her to go into paranormal romance, or like romantasy, I guess we're calling, I don't know. There's a disconnect there for me. I don't know that I'd call this really romantasy, but I'd definitely stick it in the paranormal realm. But regardless, so she is a vampire and he is a werewolf, and her father is very prominent in the vampire community, and he is an alpha of this pack, and she is given to him as his wife, as collateral for this treaty that they're working on, but she has ulterior motives for wanting to go to him specifically, and I'm not going to go into it any more than that, but I really liked it. I listened to the audiobook. I thought the audiobook was really, really good. I enjoyed the entire story. It's maybe a little predictable, but I liked the ending a lot, and I liked the hint that there's going to be more in this series to come, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. Next was Blood and Fury by Tessa Gratton and Justine Ireland. I talked about Chaos and Flame not last year, the year before? Must be the year before. So 2022, I talked about Chaos and Flame, and I really, really liked it, and I was fortunate enough to receive an arc of that, and I was fortunate enough to receive an arc of this one as well. It was great. The story ended on a cliffhanger in book 1, so I really can't talk too much about the events of book 2, but book 1 you follow Darling, who is a member of this like rebel community trying to fight against the dragon country. This world is segmented into different like animal houses. That's the word I'm looking for, houses. So Dragon House has kind of taken over the entire country. They've had like a stronghold on all of it. The Dragon Regent is kind of going insane. She ends up being kind of forced to pretend that she is the long-lost regent of the House Sphinx, which has been obliterated by the dragons, but they're like trying to bring a little bit of peace back to the world, and so he forces her to pretend that she's the long-lost scion of House Sphinx. So more things ensue. I don't really want to get too much into it, but everybody in this world has something called a boon, which is like, if you think of X-Men and all of the powers that the X-Men, people in the X-Men mutants have, it's kind of similar to that. Everybody has something that's a little bit different. Darling, she has night vision, essentially. She has to wear goggles during the day because like it's too bright for her eyes. Talon, who is the male main character in this series, the brother of the Prince Regent of the House of the Dragons, he can like track people, he can see traces of them, and he can kind of predict, not the future, but he can predict like what people will do in a fight, things like that. So the magic system's cool, the world is cool, the fantasy vibes are cool. I just really like this series, I really like this world, and I think that it wrapped up really, really, really well with book 2. Next, I read These Deadly Prophecies by Andrea Tang. This was an arc that I had received from the publisher, and it follows a girl who's a wizard's apprentice, or a sorcerer's apprentice? I don't really know. And she is learning how to be able to tell prophecy from him. But he is all of a sudden murdered, and she is trying to figure out who did it, and she tries to solve it with the help of his son, who was also a like prophecy apprentice kind of a thing. And I enjoyed it. It was it's YA, and it really gives the Sorcerer's Apprentice vibes, because it does take place in this world, but the difference is that everybody knows that magic exists, so everybody knows that sorcerers are a thing, and there's even like a specific investigative branch of the police dedicated to investigating magical crimes. And so she is trying to figure out who murdered her master and his father, so that they are not the ones to blame for it, because they are definitely lead suspects, as they are both 2 of the last people to have seen him. And it was fun, maybe not the right word for a murder mystery, perhaps, but I had a really good time with it. I think that I really enjoyed the writing style. I think that I did not predict the ending, which I was kind of surprised by, because I thought that it was following along with some pretty normal story beats. But that could just be me. It could have been predictable if it were somebody else reading it. I don't know. You guys let me know. I enjoyed it. I had a really good time. I gave it 4 stars. The very last book on this list is Nightbreaker by Coco Ma, and this is another arc that I received from the publisher. These, let's be honest guys, it's been a minute since I've uploaded, so these might already be out. They probably are. Everything should be linked below so you can check everything out that I'm talking about. But Nightbreaker by Coco Ma involves, I don't know exactly how it happened. One night, I guess, in New York City, there was this magical mist that descended upon the city, and tons of people just vanished, and nobody knew where they went. And then all of a sudden, a couple of weeks later, these monsters, like mutated monsters, kind of just started appearing out of nowhere. Society evolved over the next like decade or so to fight these monsters. I don't remember what they're called. Mavericks, maybe? They start like going into training to learn how to fight these monsters, or like they go on specific career tracks. And the main girl, her family was murdered by these monsters, and so all she wants to do is learn how to kill them and get her vengeance. And then you proceed into a very Hunger Games style kind of situation, because the final test that they have before they can become a maverick is that they have to be in this televised event where they compete against / with each other to make it to the end, and like go through all of these different tests and riddles and so on and so forth. But things happen, it all goes awry, nothing goes to plan, and definitely things are not what they seem. And you're also following her ex-boyfriend, who is also training to be a maverick, also competing in this competition, and you find out like why they broke up and what kind of happened there. It ended a little bit on a cliffhanger, so I know that there's going to be a book 2, or at least there should be a book 2. But I enjoyed it. The action was fun. It was definitely something that I hadn't seen before, other than the Hunger Games-esque competition. But the whole monsters taking New York City thing, it definitely gave me Razorland Chronicle vibes by Anne Aguirre, with the monsters in like the New York City subways, which is one of my favorite YA dystopians that I've ever read. And if you haven't read it, you definitely should. But if you have read it and you liked it, I think that you would like Nightbreaker by Coco Ma. And I ended up giving it 4 stars. Alright, so I've been talking for a really long time. That is everything that I've read so far in 2024, and you guys are officially caught up. From now on, I'll probably be trying to do like recent reads videos fairly regularly, so that I don't have to do this in such long format again, but that is mostly everything through January and February. So yeah, that's all for this one. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Down in the description box, you're going to see links to my Goodreads, my Twitter, and my Instagram, in case you guys wanted to follow me on any of those. That's it for me today, guys.